We live in interesting times. For the headlines. U.S. President Donald Trump is acquitted by the Senate following a historic impeachment trial that shone a harsh light on America's political divide without ever shaking the loyalty of his electoral base. Thousands of people are stranded aboard 2 cruise ships in Asia, quarantined by officials desperate to stem the spread of a deadly virus that has killed hundreds in China and spread panic worldwide. A passenger plane landing at an airport in Istanbul has skidded off the runway and broken into 3 parts, killing 3 people and injuring more than 170. And U.S. silver screen legend Kirk Douglas, the son of Jewish Russian immigrants who rose through the ranks to become one of Hollywood's biggest ever stars, has died. He was 103. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. The U.S. Senate acquitted President Donald Trump of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress following a historic 2-week trial. The Republican majority Senate voted 52-48 to acquit President Trump of abuse of power and 53-47 to acquit him of obstruction of Congress. Take a look.
Senate, having tried Donald John Trump, President of the United States, upon 2 articles of impeachment exhibited against him by the House of Representatives, and 2/3 of the senators present not having found him guilty of the charges contained therein, it is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby, acquitted of the charges in said article.
But Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker and top Democrat in Congress, said that by clearing President Trump, Republicans had normalized lawlessness.
Speaker of the House says she refuses to accept this acquittal, whatever that means. Perhaps she will tear up the verdict like she tore up the State of the Union address. Across the aisle, is this really where you want to go? The president isn't the president. An acquittal isn't an acquittal. Attack institutions until they get their way. Even my colleagues who may not agree with this president must see the insanity of this logic. It's like saying you're so worried about a bull in a china shop that you want to bulldoze the china shop to chase it out. Before this process fully concludes, I want to very quickly acknowledge a few of the people who helped the Senate fulfill our duty these past weeks. First and foremost, I know my colleagues join me in thanking Chief Justice Roberts for presiding over the Senate trial with a clear head, steady hand, and the forbearance that this rare occasion demands.
And thank you all for making my presence here as comfortable as possible. As I depart the chamber, I do so with an invitation to visit the court. By long tradition and in memory of the 135 years we sat in this building, we keep the front row of the gallery in our courtroom open for members of Congress who might want to drop by to see an argument or to escape one.
Meanwhile, Mitt Romney of Utah was the only Republican senator to cross the aisle and convict President Trump on the first charge of abuse of power.
The grave question the Constitution tasks senators to answer is whether the president committed an act so extreme and egregious that it rises to the level of a high crime and misdemeanor. Yes, he did. The president asked a foreign government to investigate his political rival. The president withheld vital military funds from that government to press it to do so. The president delayed funds for an American ally at war with Russian invaders. The president's purpose was personal and political. Accordingly, the president is guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust. What he did was not perfect. No, it was a flagrant assault on our electoral rights, our national security, and our fundamental values. Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine. Were I to ignore the evidence that has been presented and disregard what I believe my oath and the Constitution demands of me for the sake of a partisan end, it would, I fear, expose my character to history's rebuke and the censure of my own conscience.
To the president's behavior.
Now, despite Democratic hopes, two other moderate Republicans, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, did not join Mr. Romney in voting to convict the president. Some Republican senators criticized President Trump's behavior in recent days, but said it didn't rise to the level of impeachment.
It was a day, a week, 2 weeks, where the crucible of the nation was tested. A lot of people, including a Republican, passed the test. A lot of Republicans, Leader McConnell, failed that test.
Yeah, look, I was surprised and disappointed, but we have much work to do for the American people. And I think Senator Romney has been largely supportive of most everything we've tried to accomplish.
Our Republican colleagues have rejected a fair trial, truth. There's a giant asterisk next to the president's acquittal. The asterisk says he was acquitted without facts, he was acquitted without a fair trial, and it means that his acquittal is virtually valueless.
In the House, and I think the message there is don't do partisan impeachment, which remember is what the Speaker said. And she was initially correct about it, what she said sometime back. We don't want this to become routine.
Acquitted for life.
Meanwhile, President Trump has repeatedly denounced the impeachment initiative as a hoax, a witch hunt, and a crusade against him. Minutes after the vote, President Trump posted a video starting with his own campaign logo for the years 2024 and ending with Trump for Eva. Trump is limited by law to 2 terms, meaning he would not be allowed to run in 2024 should he win re-election this November. Now, he later added he would make a public statement regarding his acquittal from the White House on Thursday at noon local time. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell also said that the impeachment was a mistake. Take a look.
So I'm not sitting here predicting what will be the biggest issue in November, but I can tell you this. Right now, this is a political loser for them. They initiated it. They thought this was a great idea. And at least for the short term, it has been a colossal political mistake.
And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer derides what he described as the sham trial of U.S. President Donald Trump. Take a look.
A simple majority of senators, in deference to, and most likely in fear of, the president of their party, perpetrated a great miscarriage of justice in the trial of President Trump. As a result, the verdict of this kangaroo court will be meaningless. By refusing the facts, by refusing witnesses and documents, the Republican majority has placed a giant asterisk, the asterisk of a sham trial, next to the acquittal of President Trump, written in permanent.
Thousands of people are stranded aboard two cruise ships in Asia on Thursday, quarantined by officials desperate to stem the spread of a virus that has killed hundreds in China and spread panic worldwide. At least 20 people on board one ocean liner off the Japanese coast have tested positive for the new coronavirus, with thousands more facing 2 weeks of isolation. The outbreak on the vessel, whose 3,700 passengers and crew hail from over 50 countries, is the latest development in a snowballing global health emergency that has left more than 560 people dead, most of them in China. Take a look. Okay, Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned. Thousands of people were stranded aboard two cruise ships in Asia on Thursday, quarantined by officials desperate to stem the spread of a deadly virus that has killed hundreds in China and has spread panic worldwide. At least 20 people on board one ocean liner off the Japanese coast have tested positive for the new coronavirus, with thousands more facing 2 weeks of isolation. The outbreak on the vessel, whose 3,700 passengers and crew hail from over 50 countries, is the latest development in a snowballing global health emergency that has left more than 560 people dead, most of them in China. In Hong Kong, 3,600 people spent the night confined aboard the cruise ship World Dream as authorities conducted health checks after 3 former passengers tested positive for the virus. In Japan, more than 3,700 people were confined to quarters aboard the Diamond Princess, which has been held off the port city of Yokohama since Monday night. Now, authorities decided to quarantine the ship and test hundreds on board after a former passenger who disembarked in Hong Kong last month tested positive for the virus. Health Minister Katsunobu Kato told Parliament on Thursday that results for 102 people had now come in, with 20 testing positive. Japan now has confirmed 25 cases of the new coronavirus, excluding the cruise ship infections, among them citizens returning from Wuhan, the Chinese city of the center of the outbreak. Tokyo has evacuated more than 500 Japanese citizens from Wuhan and attracted some criticism for its relatively loose quarantine approach. There have been several incidences of apparent person-to-person transmission in Japan, including a tour guide and bus driver who contracted the virus after coming into contact with visitors from Wuhan. Neither had visited China in recent months. David Abel, a passenger on quarantined cruise ship the Diamond Princess, described his first full day of being confined. Take a look.
Hello again, everybody. This is David Abel from the Diamond Princess. We are out at open sea, 5:20 in the evening on Wednesday here, and I am not kidding. The ocean is the roughest we have experienced the whole time we've been away. So it's been a very interesting first full day of quarantine at sea. Still, we are not allowed outside of the cabin. We are confined here full time. We've had one hot drink given to us since this morning. We've got bottled water, but we've only had one hot drink that's been offered. The meals have completely changed. We are definitely no longer on a luxury cruise. I'm not saying that I'm looking forward to the next 13 days, but we'll cope with it. You know, Sally, my wife, and I, we will cope with this, most definitely. It's just an extended 2-week cruise, but it's not going to be a luxury cruise. It's going to be like a floating prison. But we've got the free time to let our mind do whatever it wants. It can either be creative and thinking positive things, or we can be dragging ourselves down into the gutter. I certainly won't be doing that.
Cruise operator Princess Cruises said 3 passengers from Japan, 3 from Hong Kong, 2 from Australia, and 1 American, together with 1 Filipino crew member aboard the Diamond Princess, were infected. Tests are being carried out on samples taken from 273 of the 3,711 people on board after a former passenger who disembarked in Hong Kong was diagnosed with the virus that has claimed almost 500 lives in China, where it originated. Meanwhile, China scrambled to find bed space for thousands of newly infected patients on Thursday as the death toll from the novel coronavirus soared to 563. More than 28,000 people are now known to be infected nationwide in the outbreak that has spiraled into a global health emergency. 24 countries now have confirmed cases of the coronavirus that emerged from a market selling exotic animals at the end of last year. Now, on Thursday, thousands of people were stranded aboard 2 cruise ships in Asia, with tests finding that 20 people had contracted the virus in one of the vessels. At the Chinese epicenter of the epidemic in Hubei province, the lockdown city of Wuhan was due to open a second field hospital offering 1,600 beds. Now, the first hospital with 1,000 beds opened earlier this week, and authorities said they were converting public buildings into temporary medical facilities to deal with the influx of sick people. The city of 11 million is facing a severe lack of beds, according to Liu Lishan, a senior official in Wuhan, noting that there were 8,182 beds admitted to 28 hospitals that have a total of 8,254 beds. There's also a shortage of equipment and materials. The central government has announced measures intended to ensure the supply of vital medical resources, with tax breaks for manufacturers or equipment needed to fight the epidemic. And panic buyers in Hong Kong have descended on supermarkets to snap up toilet rolls as the government warned that online rumors of shortages were hampering the city's fight against the coronavirus outbreak. Of long queues of people buying toilet paper and empty shelves, take a look. And more updates on the coronavirus. Let's head on over to Thailand, where our Southeast Asia Bureau correspondent Cristel Pereira reports from Bangkok. Cristel?
Thai officials here reported more cases of human-to-human transmission of coronavirus, with 6 people, 4 Thais and 2 Chinese tourists. They're the latest that have been found infected. Dr. Thanarak Pat, Deputy Director General of the Disease Control Department, the country is now in the stage of disease transmission. And since they are staying in places full of foreign visitors, tourists are likely to be in areas of disease transmission. Now, health authorities contacted South Korea for information about a Korean woman found infected with novel coronavirus on her return from Thailand despite having never visited China. The 42-year-old South Korean woman tested positive for the virus after arriving home from Thailand on January 19. She became ill on January 25. Now in quarantine, she is the 16th person found to have contracted the virus in South Korea. Dr. Thanarak said that authorities were informed of the case in South Korea and were seeking details of her test results, condition, and where she had visited in Thailand. The information would help them locate people who might have been in contact with her. Dr. Thanarak said the case of the Korean woman does not change the degree of risk concerning the disease in Thailand, and the chances of contraction remain low here in Thailand. Suwanachai Watanaying Charanchai, Director General of the Disease Control Department, told the press that the 4 Thais included a couple who had just returned from Japan. The 2 others were drivers who had driven Chinese tourists in their vehicles. The 6th and most recent patient was moved from a private hospital to the Bamrasnaradura Infectious Diseases Institute and placed on a respirator as he is 70 years old and has underlying tuberculosis. He was the driver of a van that took an elderly Chinese woman to Hua Hin, where she was receiving treatment for the infection in hospital, and her health was improving. The number of infections discovered in Thailand rose from 19 to 25 on Tuesday. 8 people have recovered and been discharged, while the other 17 remained in hospitals. Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister and Public Health Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said on Tuesday 138 Thais had boarded a Thai Air Asia flight from the epicenter of the outbreak, Wuhan in China, to Thailand. A total of 144 Thais in Wuhan and Hubei province had been due to arrive in Thailand aboard an Air Asia flight Tuesday night. However, only 141 showed up at Wuhan Airport for the evacuation flight. Mr. Anutin said 138 of the 141 had passed health checks and were allowed to board the plane to Thailand. Of the 3 not allowed to leave China, 2 had fever, while the other was found to have overstayed their visa. Thailand now requires visitors from China to show medical certificates stating they are healthy, but it has not adopted a blanket travel or visa ban and insists it has the health situation under control. Meanwhile, some pharmacies and convenience stores in 2 Bangkok districts were found to be running short of supplies of masks despite assurances from Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. The cabinet on Tuesday made face masks and hand sanitizers price-controlled products in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak and nationwide air pollution. Reporting from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Lady Cristel Pereira, and I am one with 25.
Thank you, Cristel. Meanwhile, a baby in China's epidemic hit one city has been diagnosed with the novel coronavirus just 30 hours after being born. This was reported by Chinese state media on Wednesday. The infant is the youngest person recorded as being infected by the virus, which has killed nearly 500 people since emerging late last year. CCTV quoted experts as saying it may be a case of vertical transmission, referring to infections passed from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or immediately after. The mother had tested positive for the virus before she gave birth. The official Xinhua news agency reported Monday that a baby born last week to an infected mother had tested negative. China's National Health Commission said that the oldest person diagnosed with the virus is a 90-year-old and that 80% of reported deaths have been of patients 60 years of age and older. China's ambassador to France slammed as shameful the decision by Hong Kong medical workers to strike, and they accused them of putting lives at risk in the midst of a coronavirus outbreak. Hundreds of medical staff in Hong Kong walked off the job on Monday, demanding that the semi-autonomous territory completely seal its border with mainland China to stop the spread of the virus, which has claimed nearly 500 lives worldwide. On Monday, Hong Kong's leadership announced the closure of all but 2 land crossings with mainland China. On Wednesday, the city's leader, Carrie Lam, said anyone arriving from the mainland would face a mandatory 2-week quarantine following the first reported death in Hong Kong from the disease. Now, Liu said he was certain that the epidemic will be fully brought under control, while admitting that the virus will damage the Chinese and global economy. Authorities said he was sure the fallout would be short-lived.
Des personnels médicaux à Hong Kong fait la grève pour obliger le gouvernement local de Hong Kong de fermer totalement la frontière entre Hong Kong et l'intérieur du pays, de la Chine. Je pense que c'est honteux. Au moment où tout le monde se jette dans la lutte contre l'épidémie, où il y a déjà quelques cas confirmés, ces gens-là ne travaillent pas pour sauver la vie. Mais leur activité, leurs actions peuvent entraîner des conséquences très graves. Cela signifie seulement leur perversité.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Mga kababayan, lalo na sa mga OFWs sa Middle East at North Africa, may good news kami para sa inyo. Mapapanood na ninyo ang Net25 at iba pang Filipino channels na hatid ng OSN sa presyong abot kaya. Libre ng box at installation, walang admin fees at no extra charges. Saktong entertainment na sakto lang sa budget mo. Bumisita na sa pinakamalapit na OSN store o dealer and subscribe now! Sa Net25 at OSN, siguradong at home ka dito.
Three people have died and 179 were injured when a plane skidded off the runway at an Istanbul airport, caught fire, and split into 3 after landing in rough weather. Take a look. Live images broadcast on Turkish television showed several people climbing through a large crack in the severed aircraft and escaping onto one of the wings at the rear. The Boeing 737, operated by Turkish low-cost carrier Pegasus Airlines, had flown into Istanbul's Sabiha Gökçen Airport from the Aegean port city of Izmir on Wednesday, according to NTV television. Now, 3 Turks were killed and 179 injured, according to Turkish Health Minister Fahrettin Koca, and he told this to reporters. The plane was carrying 177 passengers and 6 crew members, according to state news agency Anadolu, revising the previous total given by Turkish authorities. Turkish media reports said there were 12 children on board. Now, Istanbul Governor Arli Yerlikaya said the plane slid some 200 feet after skidding off the runway, and then it fell about 30 to 40 meters down a bank. According to NTV, Turhan said the plane broke after a strong landing at Sabiha Gökçen, one of the two main international airports in Istanbul. The front of the plane, including the cockpit, was sliced off from the bulk of the fuselage, and another huge fissure separated the rear of the aircraft, including the tail. The plane was apparently buffeted by strong winds and heavy rain, lashing Istanbul, Turkey's largest city. And 2 people were killed and about 30 injured when a high-speed train derailed near Milan in northern Italy. Take a look. Now, the accident occurred near the town of Lodi, about 50 kilometers south of Milan. Lodi Prefect Marcello Cardona told reporters an investigation was underway into the accident that killed 2 rail workers. The Milan-Salerno train was en route to Bologna when it came off the tracks. Video images showed one car flipped on its side that appeared to be still attached to the other car. Now, according to initial findings reported by the media, the engine went off the rails and struck a freight wagon on a parallel track before hitting a railway building several dozen meters away. And the cause of the accident is still ongoing. A car ramming targeting Israeli troops in Jerusalem wounded 14 people early Thursday in an attack that Palestinian Islamist group Hamas hailed as a response to Washington's controversial Middle East peace plan. Take a look. A manhunt was underway for the driver who fled the scene outside this popular Jerusalem entertainment spot. The attack occurred shortly before 2 a.m. local time outside the first station, a historic Ottoman-era railway terminus that has been turned into a cultural and entertainment center with bars and restaurants. The attackers struck in the street outside where the soldiers had been marching, according to the army. One of them, soldiers, was severely injured and has been evacuated to hospital. Public radio said they were new recruits on their way to an induction ceremony at Jerusalem's Western Hall, their holiest site where Jews can pray. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfield said the incident is being investigated as a terror attack. The Islamist Hamas movement, which controls Gaza, hailed the car ramming as a practical response to U.S. President Trump's controversial Middle East peace plan. In a statement, Hamas spokesman Hazem Kassem said the attack was part of the resistance operation, but stopped short of claiming responsibility. It also came amid heightened tensions between Israelis and Palestinians since the release last month of U.S. President Trump's long-awaited peace proposals. The Palestinians have angrily rejected the plan, which unilaterally gives Israel most of what it has sought in previous negotiations. To other news now, NASA's Christina Koch returned to Earth safely on Thursday after shattering the spaceflight record for female astronauts with a stay of almost 11 months aboard the International Space Station. Take a look. Now, Koch touched down at 0912 GMT on the Kazakh steppe after 328 days in space, along with Luca Parmitano of the European Space Agency and Alexander Skvortsov of the Russian Space Agency. Koch was shown seated and smiling broadly after being extracted from the Soyuz descent module in the Roscosmos Space Agency's video footage from the landing site. Koch, a 41-year-old Michigan-born engineer, on December 28 last year, beat the previous record for a single space flight by a woman of 289 days set by NASA veteran Peggy Whitson in 2016 to 2017. Koch also made history as one half of the first ever all-woman spacewalk, along with NASA counterpart Jessica Meyer, her classmate from NASA training in October last year. The spacewalk was initially postponed because the space station did not have 2 suits of the right size for women, leading to allegations of sexism. Ahead of the 3.5-hour journey back to Earth, Koch told NBC that she would miss microgravity. She will now head to NASA headquarters in Houston via the Kazakh city of Karaganda and Cologne in Germany, where she will undergo medical testing. Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Workers making iPhones at tech giant Foxconn's plant in central China will be quarantined for up to 2 weeks, according to the company, as cities on the mainland tighten their defenses against the coronavirus outbreak. Also known by its official name, Hon Hai Precision Industry, Foxconn is the world's biggest contract electronics maker and assembles Apple's iPhones as well as gadgets for other international brands. Foxconn's vast network of factories in China, including one of its largest in Zhengzhou in central Henan province, which is dubbed iPhone City by workers, are set to resume operations on February 10 after an extended Lunar New Year holiday caused by the outbreak. But the company said it has advised in-state and out-of-state employees at the Zhengzhou plant to be quarantined for 7 and 14 days respectively, in accordance with local government policies. The virus is also set to have an impact on international supply chains and manufacturing, given China's linchpin role in the global economy. Foxconn now projects a sales increase of 1 to 3% this year, down from a January forecast of 3 to 5%. According to Chairman Yang Liu of Bloomberg News. Foxconn has tried to allay fears of production shortfalls, saying it had previous experience of viral outbreaks following the SARS epidemic in 2003. Flag carrier Philippine Airlines on Thursday said it will mount special flights on February 10 to cater to stranded passengers affected by the government's temporary travel ban on China amid the 2019 novel coronavirus outbreak. PAL spokesperson Shelo Villaluna said the special Manila-Xiamen-Manila flights will be for chance passengers. Villaluna also said 2 pilots and 5 cabin crew volunteered to man the special flights, and they will undergo the 14-day quarantine upon their return to the Philippines. On February 2, the Philippine government has imposed a temporary travel ban on visitors from China and its special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau. The directive covers temporary ban on any person regardless of nationality, except Filipino citizens and permanent resident visa holders issued by the Philippine government directly coming from China or SAR. Any person regardless of nationality, except Filipino citizens and permanent resident visa holders who, within 14 days immediately preceding arrival in the Philippines, has been to China or its special administrative regions. Air France-KLM said that it would extend until March 15 the suspension of its flights to China, where authorities are struggling to contain a coronavirus outbreak. The French-Dutch carrier had already suspended all flights to and from China until February 9, and last week began flying employees out of the country. If conditions allow, it will gradually resume flights to Shanghai and Beijing starting March 16 before returning to normal schedules from March 29, including to Wuhan, the city at the epicenter of the outbreak. According to Air France-KLM in a statement, several airlines have halted flights to China and some to Hong Kong as well, many citing a drop in passengers because of fears of exposure to the virus. In other business news, in Marseille, opponents of the French government's pension reform are once again taking to the streets to demand the project's withdrawal, even though the text has begun its journey in the National Assembly. French unions have called for another national day of protest against the government's pension reform plan on Thursday, the day the plans come before the French Parliament. But 2 months into the social movement, the level of disruption was expected to be low compared to what the country saw in the early days of the social movement. Transport is running almost as normal across the country, even in Paris, which was the area hardest hit by the union's action in December. Discussions are ongoing between the government and the unions are ongoing on the issue of a pension pivot age that will give fuller pensions to those who work later than the legal retirement age of 62. President Emmanuel Macron's government argues that its reforms are necessary to make the pension system one of the most generous in Europe, fairer for all, and more sustainable. Chinese telecoms giant Huawei said it had filed 2 lawsuits in Texas courts against Verizon that accused the U.S. wireless carrier of patent infringement. The move is the latest by Huawei to use U.S. courts to protect its interests as President Trump's administration continues a campaign to cripple the company worldwide. The lawsuits are not directly related to that larger battle, however, dealing instead with allegations by Huawei that Verizon breached a dozen of its patents. These range from patents concerning network security to remote access protocols. Huawei said it had discussed the issues with Verizon on multiple occasions over a significant period of time, but failed to resolve the disputes. It's seeking an undisclosed amount of compensation. AFP was not immediately able to get comment from Verizon. The news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
We are living during the most extraordinary time in human history.
All transport will go fully electric.
Es wird eine völlig neue Mobilität geben, meine Damen und Herren.
Rev, the new auto show on DW. Getting you into gear on cutting-edge developments.
Wasserstofferzeugung braucht Energie.
We focus on green technology.
Das Auto ist im Betrieb absolut emissionsfrei.
And also feature head-to-heads. and the latest launches.
Das Fahrgefühl war gut, er lässt sich sehr gut fahren, er liegt sehr gut auf der Straße.
And mobility stories from around the world.
Mercedes depuis 2005.
Spanish center Serge Ibaka scored a season-high 30 points and powered the defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors to a club record 12th consecutive triumph on Wednesday by beating Indiana 119-118. The 30-year-old Congo-born big man sank a go-ahead three-pointer with 30 seconds remaining to cap a game-ending 11-0 Raptors run as the Raptors rallied from a 19-point third-quarter deficit. Raptors guard Kyle Lowry scored 32 points, passed out 10 assists, and grabbed 8 rebounds, while Cameroonian star Pascal Siakam added 25 points and 9 rebounds for the reigning NBA champions. Toronto, which trailed 69-50 early in the third quarter, improved the third-best record in the NBA to 37-14. Ibaka, who won his first NBA title with Toronto last year in his 10th league campaign, was bolstered by Raptors coach Nick Nurse to keep firing three-pointers, even though he was only 1 for 7 from beyond the arc until hitting the decider. And U.S. silver screen legend Kirk Douglas, the son of Jewish Russian immigrants who rose through the ranks to become one of Hollywood's biggest ever stars, has died, according to his family, on Wednesday. He was 103. One of the last survivors of the golden age of cinema and the father of Oscar-winning actor and filmmaker Michael Douglas, the Spartacus actor was renowned for the macho, tough guy roles he took on in around 90 movies over a 6-decade career. Take a look.
Ça te plaît?
Oui, oui.
Tu es sûr?
Oui, oui.
C'est à toi.
Merci.
Films de tous les pays, ça m'intéresse beaucoup, mais je n'aime pas de juger le travail des autres. Mais pour de
Je suis tellement heureuse parce que je suis le président.
En Union soviétique. Et avant de prendre Concorde pour Washington, voici ce qu'il nous a dit dans une interview exclusive.
Alfred Hitchcock s'ouvrira jeudi. La princesse de Monaco, qui sous le nom de Grace Kelly, vedette de plusieurs films du maître du suspense, y assistera.
L'autre roi de la soirée, ce fut lui, Kirk Douglas, 95 ans, venu remettre une statuette. Il n'en a jamais reçu.
J'ai été nommé 3 fois et j'ai toujours perdu.
I mean, I know he lived to be 103, God bless him, but you just don't think he's going to leave us. And it's such a sad day in Hollywood, I'll tell you.
All right, before we say goodbye, there's just this breaking news. A 5.9 magnitude earthquake just shook Mindanao, Philippines, 202 kilometers southeast of Davao, Philippines, 166 kilometers south of Mati, Philippines, 104 kilometers south of Pondagitan, Philippines. And we'll give you more updates or more information as details or information come in. And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, thank you, and we'll see you soon. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25.